Right now, while you're watching this, the United States government is executing a financial strategy that has never been tried in human history. They're not raising taxes. They're not cutting spending. They're not printing more dollars. Instead, they're using cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, and digital asset seizures to systematically erase $37 trillion in debt without most Americans noticing it's happening. Here's what people don't understand. That 37 trillion isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It's 120% of GDP. It's more debt relative to economic output than the US carried at the end of World War II. And here's what should terrify you. They can't tax it away. The entire federal tax revenue for a year is $4.9 trillion. They can't inflate it away fast enough without destroying the dollar's reserve currency status. They can't default on it without collapsing the global financial system. So they're doing something else. Something that's never been attempted by any government in history. There are three mechanisms working simultaneously. Mechanism number one, strategic Bitcoin reserve. The government is accumulating Bitcoin not as currency, but as a counterbalance asset that appreciates faster than debt grows. Mechanism number two, crypto asset seizures and liquidation. Federal agencies have seized over $6 billion in cryptocurrency in the last year alone, and that number is accelerating at a rate nobody's tracking. Mechanism number three, digital dollar replacement through tokenized debt. They're rebuilding how government bonds actually function using blockchain technology, making debt programmable and controllable in ways that were impossible with paper certificates. Let me show you exactly how this works, why it's genius, and why you're not supposed to understand it. Because the moment everyone figures this out, the entire strategy stops working. Here's what most people missed. In March 2024, Senator Cynthia Lummis introduced the Bitcoin Act. Not a regulation, not a framework, a strategic reserve proposal. And if you understand what that actually means, you understand why this changes everything. Think about Fort Knox. For decades, the United States held 147 million ounces of gold in that vault. The dollar wasn't backed by gold after 1971, but the gold was still there. It provided credibility. It was a tangible asset on the national balance sheet that said, we have real value behind our currency, even if we're not directly converting dollars to gold anymore. Bitcoin is digital gold, but with one crucial difference. Gold doesn't appreciate at 200% annually. Here's what's actually happening. The US government already holds 207,189 Bitcoin. Not purchased, seized, Silk Road, Bitfinex hack, dozens of smaller cases. Current value, around $9 billion at $43,500 per Bitcoin. The Bitcoin Act proposes adding 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years through strategic acquisition. If Bitcoin reaches $500,000 per coin, a conservative estimate from multiple institutional analysts, that's a $603 billion asset on the Treasury balance sheet. 603 billion sounds like 1.6% of 37 trillion. Sounds small. But here's what you're missing. Government debt grows linearly. Bitcoin grows exponentially. The historical compound annual growth rate for Bitcoin over 10 years is 196%. Treasury debt grows at roughly 6% annually when you factor in deficits and interest. This isn't about paying off debt directly. This is about creating a counterbalance asset that grows faster than the debt itself. The Treasury continues issuing bonds like always, but now there's an appreciating asset on the other side of the ledger, growing at 30 times the rate of the liability. It's not debt elimination, it's debt neutralization through asymmetric growth. But that's just the foundation. Here's where it gets aggressive. Department of Justice crypto seizures in 2020 were $137 million. In 2022, $3.36 billion. In 2024, $6.2 billion. That's a 45 times increase in 4 years. And it's accelerating at a rate that should make every crypto holder in America pay very close attention to what's actually happening. Here's what most people don't understand about civil asset forfeiture. The government doesn't need a criminal conviction. They don't need to prove you committed a crime. They need to demonstrate that the asset itself was involved in illegal activity, and the burden of proof falls on you, not them. These laws were expanded to cover digital assets in 2019, and since then, federal agencies have treated cryptocurrency exchanges like ATMs. Bitfinex hack, 3.6 billion recovered. Silk Road seizures, 5 billion total across multiple operations. FTX estate proceedings, ongoing, with an estimated 8 billion in assets being processed right now. And those are just the cases that made headlines. Unlike gold bars sitting in an evidence locker or real estate tied up in legal proceedings, cryptocurrency liquidation is instantaneous. The Treasury Department uses Coinbase Prime as their institutional broker. They can convert seized Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any other digital asset into dollars within 48 hours and apply it directly to debt service. They're not holding these assets for appreciation. They're converting them into debt payment the moment the legal window opens. Here's the scale nobody's tracking. The DOJ, IRS, and FBI currently hold an estimated $30 billion in cryptocurrency across hundreds of cases. But there's another $150 billion in ongoing investigations. Every exchange collapse, every DeFi hack, every sanctions violation, every darknet marketplace creates a new seizure opportunity. Conservative projection, $50 billion in crypto seizures by 2028. And every single dollar goes straight to the Treasury. But those first two mechanisms, they're visible if you know where to look. The third mechanism is being built in plain sight, and almost nobody understands what it actually does. In July 2023, the Federal Reserve launched FedNow. Not a cryptocurrency, not blockchain, just a real-time payment system that settles transactions instantly instead of waiting 2 business days. The media covered it like a minor infrastructure upgrade. What they didn't explain is that FedNow is the foundation for something much larger. It's the plumbing being installed before the actual system goes live. And that system is tokenized debt. Here's what tokenized debt actually means. A traditional treasury bond is a paper certificate or electronic entry that says the government owes you money. It settles in 1 or 2 days. It has a fixed interest rate. It matures on a specific date. It's static. A tokenized treasury bond is a blockchain-based smart contract. It settles instantly. It's programmable. Programmable is the key word. It means the Treasury can build rules directly into the debt itself, rules that execute automatically without human intervention, without congressional approval, without anyone voting on anything. Smart contracts can auto-adjust interest rates based on real-time economic conditions. They can prioritize certain bondholders over others algorithmically. They can implement automatic redemption schedules that activate when specific market conditions are met. They're not just digitizing debt, they're making it controllable in ways paper bonds never were. In April 2024, the Treasury Department launched a pilot program with BlackRock tokenizing $100 million in money market funds. Not government bonds yet, but the technology is identical. They're testing the infrastructure. Here's the part that should keep you awake at night. Tokenized dollars and tokenized debt allow micro-targeting of inflation. The government can increase money supply in specific sectors without creating broad inflation. They can devalue specific tranches of debt while protecting others. They can selectively reduce the real value of what they owe to foreign governments while preserving domestic bondholders. This lets them selectively default on debt without calling it a default. And because it's all programmable and automated, it happens invisibly. Now let's put all 3 mechanisms together and run the actual numbers. The baseline problem looks like this. $37 trillion in current debt, $2.2 trillion annual deficit. That means every single year, the government spends $2.2 trillion more than it collects in taxes. Project that forward to 2030, and you're looking at $50 trillion in total debt if nothing changes. That's the trajectory. That's what happens if they simply continue doing what they've been doing for the last 20 years. Mechanism number 1. The Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. 1 million Bitcoin at a conservative $250,000 per coin by 2028 gives you $250 billion. Use the optimistic projection of 500,000 per Bitcoin, and that's 500 billion. Either way, you're looking at reducing effective debt by 1 to 1.3%. Sounds small, but remember, this is an appreciating asset sitting on the balance sheet while debt depreciates in real terms through inflation. The debt grows at 6% annually. Bitcoin has historically grown at 196%. The gap closes faster than the liability expands. Mechanism number 2, crypto asset seizures. $50 billion by 2028 if current enforcement levels simply continue. 100 billion by 2030 if the acceleration rate holds. That's not speculation, that's extrapolation from Department of Justice figures that are publicly available right now. Every single dollar gets applied directly to debt principal. That's another 0.2 to 0.3% reduction. Mechanism number 3 is the multiplier. 10% of total debt tokenized by 2028 equals $5 trillion converted to programmable smart contracts. Conservative estimate, those smart contracts save 2 to 3% annually in interest through algorithmic optimization and selective restructuring. That's $100 to $150 billion in annual savings. Over a decade, you're looking at 1 to 1.5 trillion in total interest savings that never gets paid. Add it all together. Direct debt reduction from Bitcoin reserves and seizures, 850 billion to 1.6 trillion by 2030. Interest savings from tokenized debt, another 1 to 1.5 trillion over 10 years. Total combined impact, $2 to $3 trillion erased from what the debt would have been. That's not 37 trillion, but here's what you're missing. They're not trying to eliminate the debt, they're trying to stay solvent long enough for the system to stabilize. And nobody's supposed to notice it's happening. The real genius isn't the dollar amount, it's the invisibility. If the Treasury Secretary held a press conference tomorrow and announced, "We're using cryptocurrency to systematically erase government debt," you'd see the bond market collapse within 48 hours. Who wants to hold Treasury bonds when the government is openly telling you they're strategically devaluing what they owe? China and Japan together hold over $2 trillion in US debt. The moment they understand the strategy, they dump every single bond. Interest rates explode, and the dollar loses reserve currency status. So they don't announce it, they just do it. Watch the language. It's never called debt erasure. It's called strategic reserve acquisition. It's never called seizure acceleration. It's called enhanced enforcement and asset recovery. It's never called debt restructuring. It's called financial modernization and technological innovation. The strategy is real. The language is camouflage. Every press release, every congressional testimony, every Federal Reserve statement is designed to sound boring enough that nobody looks twice. Here's who knows. Treasury Secretary knows. Federal Reserve Board of Governors knows. Major institutional bondholders like BlackRock and Vanguard, they strongly suspect. Select congressional committees with financial oversight, partially informed. The general public, completely unaware. And that's intentional, because the moment everyone understands what's happening, the strategy stops working. You can't quietly accumulate Bitcoin when everyone's watching. You can't aggressively seize crypto assets when the industry knows enforcement is a debt reduction tool. You can't tokenize debt when bondholders understand they're being algorithmically devalued. What happens next is predictable. Continued expansion of all three mechanisms. Increased crypto enforcement. Expect every major exchange to face enhanced scrutiny over the next 18 months. CBDC pilot programs expanding from 100 million to tens of billions. Strategic Bitcoin reserve likely formalized through executive action by 2026, bypassing Congress entirely. They're not going to erase all $37 trillion, but they'll erase enough to stay solvent. This is the first time in history a government has used decentralized technology to centralize control of its debt. It's brilliant, it's unprecedented, and it's happening right now while everyone's arguing about regulation. Whether you think this is genius financial engineering or dangerous monetary manipulation, one thing is certain. You're watching economic history being written in real time. And most people won't understand what happened until it's already over.